Hello, Local 304. It's time for your weekly update from the business manager. Everything's going pretty smooth. Weather's nice. Went from being frigid to hot, so a lot of us didn't get the opportunity to acclimate. So be careful out there and make sure you stay hydrated. Let's just jump right into this. You know, we talked last week. We were live from Detroit and talked a little bit about line clearance as they had just voted their tentative agreement down again. So this week and next week and possibly the week after, you're going to see David Galvin and probably Chad Manspeaker out there hitting the show ups. Really need to have some good interaction. You know, when the international move from 1523 over 304 still creates some issues with dues deducts, so they'll have those and possibly some other information to share. But really need some good input back before we sit back down with the companies again for the umpteenth time to see if we can hit those targets that you set for us. Westar Energy. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening in Westar. So earlier this week, had a follow-up meeting again on stack testing. For those historians out there, we used to do the emissions testing on the stacks, and back in the early 90s, that work started being contracted out, and obviously a lot has changed in the emission world since then. A lot of the controls that we have on our power plants to limit those emissions. So going back to that, and it looks like we're going to be able to reach an agreement, even though the company is going to have some non-union folks that are in charge of the data. Looks like we're going to get our union folks to be able to help gather that data, do the tool work at each one of those facilities. So more to come on that, but in the process of getting that agreement signed on that. Worked a little bit on shared labor in our information technology groups, looking at a way that we can make sure we capture the most of the scope of the work we can and how that future is going to look. So working on an agreement with that. Next week is our healthcare committee meeting. So I know that we really worked through a lot of issues and still have a lot of issues open with Cigna. So please stay in touch with this office. As a matter of fact, any information that we could get prior to next week's meeting would be fantastic. Remember, you can email the mailbox Cigna issues at IBEW304.org with any of that information. I did see there was a class action lawsuit that was waged against that CareCentrix, and that has a lot to do with chiropractic and how those charges are being made. So please pay attention to that paperwork as if you're part of that group and get any of that information. Last thing on Westar for today, we're getting pretty close on the safety rules on the distribution side, and the safety rules are out on the generation side to our subcommittee to review. I did have a conversation today about making sure those of you that are on the subcommittee are actually getting some work time to be able to review that information so that it can all come together and for final review. So making baby steps towards that, but nothing better than making sure those of us that do the work have a voice in how the safety rules are devised for doing that work. Met with Westar again last week. I said it was the last thing, but I guess there's one more. We met with Westar last week to go through the contract changes. I know it's been a long time since we completed that negotiations, but there's so much to do to try to bring that new language into the agreement, especially in the Schedule 11 with the Internet Information Technology groups and some of the changes our network guys have gone through. So we've got a draft now that's being reviewed by the parties, and hopefully we'll get a signature on that in the next couple of weeks and be able to print, get it out to the international and be able to print some agreements. So along the line of contracts, I wanted just to hit on the fact that as you look at the contract, any one of our contracts, they're written in a way that they read from top to bottom. So I know management likes to pick a phrase out of it or an article out of it and say this means this, but you have to look at the previous articles and sections in order to make sure it all flows through. So just some FYI to think about when you're looking at agreement, how it flows through and not one section can be picked out amongst the others. Talking about political, I was really pleased this morning when I saw a report come out that shows the top 12 cities in the United States that are union, most union cities in the United States, I should say, and Topeka was ranked number 6 in the nation. Rough numbers, there's about 93,000 employees in the city, and about 23,000 of those are actually part of a labor organization. So that puts the percentage at right around 24%. So pretty impressive. Kudos to Topeka for that kind of number. David Galvin, your organizer, is working to bring those numbers up all across the state. So I know he was out earlier this week, in some of our western territories and meeting with our brothers and sisters potentially out there. So we'll keep up that good work. Along that line, let's have a little bit of a political discussion, because I was asked the other day in one of my unit meetings about, is IBEW Local 304 going to come out in support of any presidential candidate? And you know that IBEW Local Union 304 has never supported a political candidate. You may hear the IBEW come out and looking at political candidates and saying they recommend this or that person because of their voting record of how they've treated organized labor, but Local 304 never gets involved in any of the national races. And along that same line, no dues dollars go to any political candidate. You contribute to political PACs through our PAC, so that's what COPE is all about, and that's what we do at opportunities that we have COPE drawings and those kinds of things. That's what develops that money in order to be able to support labor-friendly candidates. Not ours, not D's, not I's, but labor-friendly candidates. So I guess one could say, yes, Republicans, yes, Democrats, and yes, independents, as long as they are supporting labor's needs. So again, very, very clear, no dues dollars go towards any political candidate. Since we do these updates, since I do these updates with you every Friday, I thought I'd just throw out there, we're getting a little more comfortable in what we're doing now. So since you know what's going to happen on Friday, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave us a note that what you'd like to hear. If there's something that you hear is going on in the local and you'd like me to expand upon it, please let me know, because I'm very willing to talk about any of those things. I try to hit on all the agreements that we have that are open up for negotiations, where we're at on organizing drives, but if there's something more that you'd like to hear about, let me know. Kudos to our Northrop Grumman brothers getting started on their proposals, and we should wrap that up next month and be able to get the opening letter out to the company. Since this is a rebid year with Northrop Grumman and the post office, that means contractually we have to settle the agreement this summer. So more to come. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.